It's amazing what things you didn't know you needed. I'd never heard of an Oloid until a friend introduced them to me recently. Now I realise this is what has been missing in my life all these years. It's so functional and useful, I'm going to make one to fill that void in my life. An oloid is a three-dimensional curved geometric object. It's made by placing two linked congruent circles in perpendicular planes, so that the centre of each circle lies on the edge of the other circle. Wow, that seems complicated. But when you look at the drawing, you realise that it's just those three radiuses that are important. So let's start the build. I've got two versions of the plan. One I could make from wood and one I'm going to make from aluminium. I've got this spare bit of 4mm aluminium, so that's what I'm going to use. So I just cut out the drawings. I've drawn these in CAD, but really you could just use a compass and a pencil. It's not a complicated drawing at all. So with a bit of spray glue, I just paste it onto the aluminium so that I've got a template that I can use to cut the shape out. The circles can have any pattern in them or no pattern. I've just decided to drill some holes in it, just to make them look pretty. There we go, all the holes drilled. Time to cut out the rough shapes on the bandsaw. The bandsaw won't allow me to cut a complete curves, so I just cut straights and then cut the straights off the straights to get it fairly close. As you can see, the slot needs to come in half the radius of the circle. That way, when both circles are put together, the outside of one circle goes to the centre of the other. That is the important part of making an oloid. I could only get a rough circle with the bandsaw, so now I'm going to grind to the line just using a flap disc on my angle grinder. To get the full life benefit of an oloid, you really have to have an exact circle. Now to get it completely smooth and completely circular, I just finish it off on the sander. And I've got a little bucket of water here to dump it into because aluminium really soaks up the heat. And I don't want to burn my delicate little fingers. Now I'm just chamfering the sharp edge so it's nice and smooth. A drill leaves a sharp edge on the holes that I've drilled out, so I'm just using this countersinking tool to clean up those sharp edges. I really like these completely circular countersinking tools because they don't chatter. They give a nice smooth finish. I want these two pieces to fit together perfectly with no gaps. So a little bit of filing, and that one's perfect. What about this one? No, a little bit small still. So a little bit of a file for that as well. An Oloid will not be nearly as functional if it isn't pretty. So I start by prettying up the surfaces by rubbing it on a bit of 1200 grit emery paper. But I'm not happy with that. It's not good enough yet. So it's over to the grinder to give them a polish on the buffing wheel. Well, let's see what it looks like now. Is it up to my extremely high standard or not? Yep, that looks good enough. Shiny, nice. So now comes the complicated part of final assembly. Take one disc, take the other disc, slide them together. Well, the fit's not perfect. I wanted a press fit, but I've got a slightly loose fit. So I'm just going to use a bit of super glue and just run a couple of drops into the gap, and that'll be enough to hold them together. It's come to the crucial time of testing, and does the Oloid meet my high expectations? Here goes. That's pretty unimpressive. That hasn't improved my life much at all. But wait. Now I'm trying it on the glass table. Ooh, this really is impressive. My life is feeling improved already. That empty void is being filled as I watch almost perpetual motion in motion. And even when it stops turning over, it still keeps going and going and going, and fast motion keeps going for more than 2 minutes. Wow. Still not convinced that you need one? Well, instead of sleeping with your boss, give her one of these for her executive desk, and your advancement will be assured.